Hi everyone, it's Adam with Milo's Restoration, and today I've got a video for you about furniture flipping and this piece that I found on Facebook Marketplace, and it was the second piece that I had bought from the seller, and it's not in the best shape and it's not the best quality piece. But the thing that I like about these kind of pieces is that they were kind of made recently, so they have very minimal damage, and the structures of them, generally speaking, are pretty good. But they're not made with the best materials. So I'm just gonna do my normal process here. If you're new to the channel, I use crud cutter and a clean bucket of water, and I just spray it on, then rinse it off really well, and that's really just my cleaning process. So I'll say it's kind of become like furniture flipping knowledge in general that, all you really need is a scuff sand. And that's true in a lot of cases, but not in this case. And I think that you really need to look at sanding differently whenever you do it. I think that there are times whenever you really need to sand for flatness, and this is definitely one of those. Whenever there's just big humps and stuff like that in the piece, I'm really trying to eliminate them. And basically, what I'm thinking about it like is this: I'm thinking like, okay, so this is just I'm gonna get this flat with the sander, and if I burn through the primer, if I burn through the whatever material, it doesn't matter. I'm just trying to get a flat surface. The primer is gonna solve a lot of those problems and it's gonna seal it. And then on after I sand that first coat of primer, I'll have a relatively flat surface where I can start working with and start working towards a really good finish. So just a little hand sanding there, and I also wanted to add some stabilizers. I basically just drilled some pocket hole screws and cut some pieces of wood, and this helped to kind of make the case a little more rigid. Also, I'm now mixing up my Mohawk vinyl sealer, and this is just some iron ore color that I had. This is not going to be my base color, but I just wanted to use it up because I really don't know what to do with it. I don't really like the color very much, so basically I just use it for primer. And I'm spraying it with my HVLP turbine, and if you're kind of new to this channel or have been here for a little while, you know that I'm not a huge fan of the HVLP turbine sprayers, but they do produce a lot less overspray, and sometimes I just don't really like to have all of that, you know, extra VOCs floating around the shop. After I sprayed my first coat of sealer, I used some kind of leftover wood filler that I had from a construction project, and I just filled all the grain basically, and then I sanded it back. I wanted to just kind of think about this in terms of like, the best use of my time. And using a one part filler is a lot easier to sand than a two part filler. But the thing is that you really need to wait about 12 hours before you can really sand on it. So what I did was I put that filler on at night, and then I came back the next morning and I sanded everything back. It's just important to think about that if you're going to use filler, because I've had a lot of bad instances recently, especially where I've used filler, then painted or lacquered it too quickly, and I came back and it shrunk up, and I was left with a crack in my nice lacquered piece. And so going into the next coats, I'm going to start spraying the floor down with like a little pump sprayer like I'm using here. And that's just to keep dust down, because at this point, I've already sanded everything flat, and I'm really just trying to just get that kind of color coat on, which I'm going to do with this vinyl sealer, which I'm mixing up here. And this is the actual color of the chest of drawers, and it's Hale Navy. And I add about 2 ounces of lacquer thinner and 2 ounces of retarder to every batch of the vinyl sealer that I mix up. And I basically use the same formula for my lacquer too. And really, I'm just trying to spray a wet coat on and let everything level out. And you want it to look really good, because the thing about vinyl sealer, and if you're going to use your vinyl sealer as your base color coat that nobody really tells you, is that it's hard to sand on vinyl sealer and then respray it and have it look the same. If you sand it, generally speaking, what happens is the pigment is not necessarily consistent 100% after you've sanded it. So what ends up happening is when you spray your clear, it looks really bad. So that's just something that I've recently learned, and what I've just avoided doing is basically sanding my last coat of vinyl sealer. But I'll probably spray this one and then sand this one and then spray one more, and then the last one I won't sand, and I'll just spray my lacquer on top of that, and I won't sand in between coats. Okay, so this is definitely going to be the last coat of vinyl sealer here. And after that, I'm going to start mixing up some lacquer. And what I can say about the last coat of the vinyl sealer is that it's really important to have it looking exactly like you'd want it. It really needs to look like a finished surface. It doesn't, the old kind of trope of it's just primer, You can sand it. No, don't really think about it that way if you're going to do it how I'm doing it. You really need to have it looking good. And this is the Mohawk lacquer, and it's gloss. It's considered 80 sheen, and I think I told you already, but I added 2 ounces of lacquer thinner and 2 ounces of retarder, and I use this lacquer today. It's been a while since I've used this product. I use the Mohawk vinyl sealer, but I can say that I'm not a huge fan of their lacquer. I just feel like this lacquer, like whenever you look at it when it's in the can, it looks a little duller than other products. Like normally, like a lot of the lacquers, you can just see straight through them. And I think what it is that there's some kind of like kind of sheen in there that's kind of dulling it down. And I'm not really sure why, but for some reason the Gemini and the Exalta Precats just seem to be a little bit more glossy, and I think I'm going to stick with them. But I do like Mohawk's vinyl sealer, and overall I just feel like Mohawk makes very good products, but I'm just not a huge fan of the way that their gloss looks. Okay, so since I've already got all of the edges sprayed on the drawers and sealed up, I figured, you know what, I'll just go ahead and put the drawers in now. And with this particular kind of piece, the way it is, I can just spray everything at once. And that's what I did. I just sprayed my final coats of lacquer onto it with all the drawers inside the case. And it just made it a lot easier, and it saved some lacquer. But also you notice that I've got a light now, and I'm looking to make sure that I've got all the areas covered and that I'm not leaving any areas of dry spray or anything like that. And one thing that you won't be used to if you're, kind of used to using chalk paints or other things like that is just how quickly lacquer dries. It can dry really quickly, and, it's just a lot different of a material to work with. But ultimately, you just need to be careful with it, and you just need to use a really well ventilated area. But it's just been a game changer for me, and I don't necessarily think that I'll go back to using any other kind of products right now. But also, just something to think about. The transportation times as far as like something like this. So if I get this kind of thing done, generally speaking, 16 hours later, I can start putting hardware on and stuff like that. So this hardware came from Lowe's, well, Home Depot, I'm sorry. And it was probably about $4 or $5 per piece, which is kind of expensive. I think you can get a lot cheaper ones off Amazon, and honestly, all of the stuff generally speaking, comes from the same place. And I can say that it definitely adds to the look of this piece. I think I'm really happy with this. I'm not as happy with the gloss as I've been with all of the other coatings, but that being said, I still think it looks beautiful. And I'm going to get it listed and hopefully get it sold soon. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you want to see more content like this.